Good day and welcome to another really thrilling episode of the Offside Musings Podcast. My name is Oke Ndibe and I'm delighted to welcome you on behalf of my co-host Emeka Onyagwa. Today we have a truly special guest, Steven Kefas. And in the interest of brevity, I'm going to read quickly Steven Kefas' Twitter handle by way of introduction. Steven Kefas describes himself as an accidental journalist, human rights defender. He's a founder of Middle Belt Times. He's an ex-Kaduna political prisoner for 162 days, and he now lives in exile. Steven Kefas, it's our delight to welcome you to this podcast.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure being here.
Yes. Let's begin by asking sort of the question that will be on the minds of our listeners. How did you become an accidental journalist and human rights defender?
Thank you so much. I've heard that question repeatedly in the past. I read computer science. Unfortunately, they said necessity is the mother of invention. So delving into journalism or citizen journalism was born out of necessity. There was a need for it. Where I come from, we were experiencing a massacre, sort of, and the conventional mainstream media were being muzzled by the authority not to report things as they are happening. So for some of us who are from that area, we had only one choice: to either take it up upon ourselves to tell our story or forget about it. So some of us started undergoing training on the basic training on how to write, how to report issues as they happen. So that was how I. Then, of course, if you truly are practicing real journalism or citizen journalism, you can't shy away from defending the rights of people, because you get to see human rights being abused every day, and you want to advocate for them. You want to tell their stories. So the two work hand in hand, actually. But of course, there are a lot of brown envelope journalists today who would not want to talk about the rights of people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Could you speak more specifically about the area of Nigeria you come from, and this area that is under constant attacks by terror groups?
Okay, Kaduna State, Southern Kaduna to be precise. Southern Kaduna to be precise. Yeah.
Good. Okay, so you started focusing on these attacks. Tell us the means that you use for some of this, for drawing attention to these terrible human rights abuses.
Yeah, the social media. In fact, I started on Facebook sometimes around 2014. Funny enough, I was a banker then in 2014. I was working with First Bank. I was barely 23 then, so as a young banker, and so there was no conflict of interest. My manager was always telling me that, hey, people are saying you are becoming too loud on Facebook, so you have to tone down. Eventually, I quit the job in 2015 because it became obvious that I cannot continue working there while advocating for justice for my people that are constantly under the barrel of the gun. So I had to quit the job, and then the north was no longer conducive for me. I had to relocate to Port Harcourt in Rivers State. A lot of people didn't know that I live in Port Harcourt from 2015 till I was abducted in 2019, the agent of the state. So I was always writing on Facebook. Sometimes I would travel all the way from Port Harcourt, sneak into communities, get photographs of dead bodies, burnt houses, post them on Facebook. Then I was still an amateur. I didn't know how to structure a news report. But as time goes on, I took some training on journalism, and then I now started using my Twitter handle. That Twitter handle had been since 2009, but I was not really using it. But a friend told me that, hey, Twitter is where you get actual attention of policymakers and some of these political elites. So I went to Twitter, I started tweeting, and it blew up. Like, it went viral. People started making reference to my write-ups.
We lost you for about a minute and a half.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
So when you were saying that it went viral, I think that's the last thing that I was heard.
So my post started going viral, and some organizations started making reference to my post. Pictures I took were being used also by organizations crediting me. So that was when I knew that, yes, we're now getting the attention we deserve. And actually, our activities on the social media actually drew attention. The government became more interested, even though they were not stopping the killings. Of course, we didn't expect them to stop it. But then, for the fact that they started hunting some of us, so we knew that we were doing the right thing.
Okay, so instead of your reportage began to draw both domestic and international attention, and then the government's response was not to go after the terrorists, not to go after the people who were destroying lives and property, but to come after some of you who were reporting on these horrific events. That's true, isn't it?
Yes, that's true. Ironically, yeah.
Yes. So would you say then that the government was always implicated, directly or indirectly, in these attacks on certain communities in Kaduna?
It is public knowledge that the government, both at the federal and the state level, is complicit. Because how do you explain that since 2015, there have been killings, communities have been attacked and occupied, you have over 1 million people displaced, and then not a single terrorist has been arrested, not to talk of prosecuted? I mean, how do you explain that? And the government has the forces and resources and the technology to identify these people, to prosecute them according to the laws of the land. But this is not being done. And you had a former chief of army staff, Lieutenant General T.Y. Danjuma, saying publicly that there's a collusion between the military and the terrorists. So it's not just about I as a civilian alleging this. No, the facts are there. I've carried out investigation, which I published, where people in the community, victims, will tell you that, hey, this is what happened. In some instances, they even accuse the military of taking part in the attacks. In June last year, for instance, a community was attacked in Kajuru, local government area of Kaduna State. A certain helicopter, white painted helicopter, was flying at low level, providing cover for the terrorists on the ground. I went there with my friend. The caliber of ammunition we recovered from the scene are not the conventional AK-47 ammunitions. These are high caliber rounds, about 30, 50 mm. Now, these sort of ammunitions are not even supposed to be deployed even in war. In fact, an Air Force officer told me that those ammunitions are anti-material. You use it against armored vehicles and maybe aircraft, not humans. But these were ammunitions deployed against farming communities. Communities that all they have are machetes, sticks, and maybe bows and arrows. So, and let me tell you something that is not out there in the media. The Kaduna state government came out and said that the helicopter sighted belonged to the Air Force, that the helicopter was there to repel the terrorists. And the question is, when did the Nigerian Air Force began using white helicopter? We all know the Air Force paints how military helicopters are painted all over the world. Now, also, how comes not a single terrorist was injured or killed by the Air Force, but the villagers were killed? And that was not the first time we've had issues of villagers alleging that a certain white helicopter is the same color. In Niger, it happened in Niger, it happened in somewhere in Borno, the same white helicopter. And the question is, who owns the helicopter? So that question has not been answered.
So let me ask one more question before I let my co-partner come in. The implications of what you're saying is that the Nigerian government is engaged not just in acts of criminality, which a lot of government officials around the world occasionally will dabble in criminality. This is high crime. This is perhaps the most heinous crime that can be committed when people's lives and property, people who are innocent altogether, people who have not committed crimes, that their lives and property will be put in jeopardy and indeed taken away from them in the most gruesome manner. What you're saying, in effect, is that the Nigerian government is an active participant, an active encourager, an active player in this grand criminality. Let's be clear there. I want to get you on record.
Absolutely. The evidence on ground points to this fact. We've had instances where the communities sometimes arrest these terrorists, hand them over to the security agent, only for them to be released. So how do you explain that? So this is not a mere allegation. The evidence, the facts, the handwritings are clear on the wall. So whether we like it or not, like T.Y. Danjuma rightly said, that's a former chief of army staff. That is a collusion. And also, the chief of defense staff, General Lucky Irabo, June last year, confessed that they have evidences that there are elements in the military working hand in hand with the terrorists. So how do you, yes, is there? There are publications to that effect. So how do you explain that? So
okay,
it is clear.
Yes. Emeka, just one more question.
All right.
So I just don't want us to lose this thread. You spoke about running away to Port Harcourt for several years until your adoption. Can you, I think that's your abduction in 2019, isn't it?
Yeah, 2019, yeah.
Right? And then you were held in detention for 160 something days.
Yes.
Okay. Can you describe that moment, your abduction? So you were abducted from Port Harcourt and moved to Kaduna. Can you describe that event?
Okay. 8th of May, 2019. Like every other day, I went to work. And to tell you how criminal the Nigerian state is, 8th of May was on Thursday. Now, on Saturday before that Thursday, I left my house where I was living, only to return back and notice that my body spray and my TV set was taken from my room without my door broken.
Your room in Port Harcourt?
Yes, without my door broken, and I don't share my key. All my spare keys were with me. I don't keep friends because I knew they were after me, so I was a bit discreet. Now, 2 weeks before that day, a black 406 vehicle was trailing me in Port Harcourt. So when the TV disappeared from my room and my body spray, wow, and the whole neighborhood said, in the last 20 years, there've never been incident of theft down there. So it's a secured place. So I knew something was wrong. So I stopped sleeping in the house. So on that Thursday, I was at work at Rumogwa in Port Harcourt. Rumogwa is a popular community in Port Harcourt. And then I got a call from a friend, a very good friend, who is a police officer, who they also track because they noticed he has been somebody I always talk to for some time. So they arrested him. I didn't know they've arrested him. And intimidated him and told him that he must call me and speak the language we used to speak for me to come. So, yeah. So a lot of people were accusing him of betraying me. I said, no, he didn't betray me. He was under the barrel of the gun too. So he called, I told him where I was, and he came. He said I should follow them to the police station. He came all the way from Kaduna.
From Kaduna?
Yes. They've been in contact.
And were these DSS officers or police officers?
They were plainclothes police officers. Plainclothes, yeah. So I followed them to the police station at Rumogwa. They call it Midiokoro Police Station. It's a divisional headquarters. So when we got there, they said I'm under arrest. I said, what for? They brought a petition that looks like a dictionary. They printed all my Facebook posts and Twitter posts from 2015. They binded it. They said this petition from a legal aid to the governor, El-Rufai. I said, okay, do we have a warrant for this arrest? They said, no, there's no need for that. That's the first criminality. There's no warrant. They said I should write a statement. I said, well, I'm not going to write anything until I see a lawyer. They said, oh, you are proving stubborn. I said, well, you can call it what you want to call it. Now, the plan was to smuggle me to Kaduna the next morning without the media knowing, without anybody knowing. Because when they detained me at Takot, they gave an instruction that nobody should see me and nobody should talk to me. And they collected my phones. So around 11 p.m., I told a policewoman who is elderly, I said, Mommy, you have to help me. That's if I'm going to stay alive. Take this number, tell this person, he's my brother, that I've been arrested by the state government. She said, I want to put her in trouble. Oh God, please. I said, Mommy, you won't understand. Check what they wrote on the board. That is my crime. It's not armed robbery. It's not 419. It's not kidnapping. Check it. She saw it. She said, inciting disturbance. I said, Mommy, is that an offense? So she accepted to make the call. Now, that call was my saving grace because the moment she called my brother, before you know it, it was all over the news that I've been abducted. Sarah Reporters was the first to make a publication. So when they came, to tell you that they have a sinister motive, they came around 4 a.m. in the morning on Friday with an unmarked taxi that I should hop in. So when I entered, I think they started going online. They now saw publications that everybody, the whole world is aware. They now said, Steven, how did the media get to know you have been picked? I said, I'm always writing in the media. So if they've not seen me write anything in the last 12 hours, then something is wrong. So they drove me to a motor park. I said, no, come on. The government had come to arrest me. Why a motor park? Why not the airport? They said there's no logistic for air travel. And that was the time the kidnapping along Kaduna Abuja Road was at its peak in 2019. So my fear was we could just get to that dangerous spot and they will arrange for people to shoot at the vehicle and they will say we're attacked. That was my fear. So I was just praying that God, please help me to get to Kaduna. So we got to Kaduna around 7:45 p.m. Now, since the day I was abducted, not even water, not to talk of food, till we got to Kaduna.
Oh my gosh.
Kaduna, they paraded me around the police headquarters like a common thief, sometimes handcuffed, and you see all the... And that was when I knew that Nigeria is finished. Because when you get to a Muslim police senior officer's office, he will insult me. look at you. You people are the ones causing trouble. Then when you get to a Christian senior officer's office, he will talk to you with respect. So that was when I knew that the police force is sectionalized.
Yes.
So of course the treatment was so. Muslim police officers will treat you badly. The Christian police officers will treat you with dignity. And that's how the journey started. 14 days in police detention without arraignment in court or reasonable arraignment. Eventually, they threw me into the Kaduna prison, where I spent 162 days under horrible, horrible conditions.
Yeah.
So,
Steven, to start with, I would like to know a little, because you started from Kaduna, so I'm guessing you either went to Ahmadu Bello University, or you went to, which is around Zaria, or you went to Kaduna Poly.
Yeah, Kaduna Poly, yeah. That's my alma mater, yeah.
Kad Poly. I lived in Kaduna for about 9 months. I was in Congo campus, so I know Kaduna a little bit. So, I would like to know the dynamics how would you describe the dynamics in Kaduna between Southern Kaduna and what has now become, in effect, if you could give us like a little bit of history in terms of Northern Kaduna and Southern Kaduna. Most people don't understand that it didn't always start out that way. And it was essentially man-made to make sure that Muslims are on one side and Christians are on one side. So if you can give us a view on how that happened, a historical view on how that happened, and the effects it has today with the current governor.
Okay. Before year 2000, am I audible enough?
Yes.
Okay. Before year 2000, I had relatives who live in Kau, Mando, and other part of Kaduna metropolis. Before year 2000, everybody lives anywhere. Now, then the Sharia crisis came. Now, after the Sharia crisis, the crisis became Muslim versus Christians.
Okay, was this the institution of Sharia law?
Yes.
In some parts of northern Nigeria.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
good.
Yes. So after that crisis that engulfed the state in year 2000, the state was restructured, kind of. The Christians felt they are no longer safe up north the river. So they migrated down. And when I say the Christians, I'm not talking about just the indigenes. I'm also talking about other tribes, the Igbos, the Yorubas, the Edos, and every other person that were not Hausas and were not Fulani. So they migrated down across the river. Also, the Muslims who were living down across the river before had to move upward. So that division started significantly in the year 2000. But then I think it all boils down to leadership. The governor McCarthy then tried to manage the crisis, by creating chiefdoms across the state to give the people, the various ethnic nationalities, sense of belonging and independence, sort of, So even though, yes, people have left their land, their houses in other part of Kaduna, moving down, that division was created. But it was properly managed, at least until 2011, when we had the post-election crisis. Now, and the post-election crisis, we all know who created it. The current guys in power created or instigated that crisis because the election was free and fair. A winner was declared. So why now, instigate people?
This crisis you're talking about, is it the Patrick Yakowa election?
Good. Yakowa and Goodluck Jonathan's election, 2011. Now,
and Yakowa is a Southern Christian.
Yes, it's a Southern Christian.
Who gets into office for the first time.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, he got into office by divine providence. We knew how Namadi Sambo was pressured not to accept the position of vice president because he was vacating his office as governor for an infidel. That was impression. So after the 2011 election results were announced, the general belief in northern Nigeria was that if you are a Christian, you voted for the PDP. Yeah. So they started killing and burning and looting. So the 2011 post-election crisis created a new chapter of tension in Kaduna State. Because 1 year, 5 months after that crisis and Yakowa's emergence as governor, he was killed in a plane crash that there's not been any conclusive investigation to date.
One which killed the I think
Azazi.
at that point.
Azazi, yes. And we all knew that Azazi too was in the bad book of some top people in government at that time, because he made some comments that didn't go down well with some elites in the country. So now, after the post-election crisis of 2011, before that election crisis, there've never been attacks on communities in southern Kaduna. Even though we had attacks in Dogona Hawa in Plateau State, you remember Plateau, where over 500 people were killed, and during the mass burial, the terrorists returned, and the Senate senator was killed. Now, we only used to read on papers that terrorists were attacking communities in Plateau. But after the post-election crisis, it shifted to southern Kaduna. Now, it started in 2011. In Zokwa, on Sunday, 3 churchgoers were massacred by terrorists. So it continued. Now, one thing is clear. The crisis that engulfed the state, the Sharia crisis and the post-election crisis, were ethno-religious crises, where Christians killed Muslims, Muslims killed Christians. Right. But the current happenings are clear cases of terrorism. It's no longer a clash where Muslims go to kill Christians. No. It's an asymmetric warfare where some terrorists invade the community, kill people, burn houses, and retreat back to wherever they are coming from to plan for the next attack. So
don't they do occupation of the land sometimes?
Of course, we've lost count of communities that have been occupied by these terrorists. Now, let me share something here that is very important. In 2020, the Southern Kaduna People's Union were alleging and telling the world that certain communities have been occupied by the terrorists. And the governor came on air and challenged the public that whoever has proof that any community has been occupied should present it. Now, let me tell you what I and some friends did. In this era of technology, so we got a drone. Because he knows that those communities that have been occupied, the terrorists are armed. So you dare not go there to confirm whether they are occupied or not. So what we did was, we flew drone over those communities. Right. And the footages were mind-blowing. You could see communities where the indigenous people were displaced. You could see their houses, you could see their farmland, then you could see the cattle grazing on their farmland, you could see the guys wielding their rifles. So the day we made those footages viral or public was the last time the governor ever challenged anyone to prove that communities are under occupation.
The governor in question is,
of course, verified.
Okay.
Yes. So there've been several communities that, even as we speak now, that the indigenous people can no longer go back there because the terrorists are there and they are armed.
So when you now do this work, you're largely in southern Kaduna, you're largely in Kaduna. But I believe you also cover parts of Niger as well, and maybe some other. I don't know if you don't go into Plateau, but I believe you do go into Niger.
In fact, I've done my work extensively to Sokoto, Zamfara, Katsina, Niger, Plateau, and people ask me, "What are you doing this for?" I said, "I want to know what is really happening because." They will come to tell you that Muslims are being killed in Zamfara, Muslims are being killed in Niger, Muslims are being killed in Katsina and Sokoto. That is true. But I found out one thing.
So who is doing the killings in those places
I found out
of these Muslims?
I wanted you to describe that first, but I also want you to describe how you would compare. Is there a comparison? Is it the same? Because you're already leading into that. You're already saying what you found out. I want you to compare and give us the landscape.
Yeah, let me explain. I established one fact in Zamfara, whether in Niger, whether in Sokoto, whether in Katsina. And the Katsina state governor also confirmed to this fact. The fact is, the people doing the killings are Fulani herdsmen. The victims of the killings, 95 to 99% are indigenous Hausa Muslims. Right. So the bottom line is the Fulani Muslims are hardly being killed, except when they get caught on crossfire, which is rare. So you could see that it's more of...
But they are doing the killing, you're saying?
They are. The Katsina state governor confirmed it. He said the bandits are Fulanis. So it's not just allegation or trying to profile a particular tribe. No. Even El-Rufai has also confirmed it, that they are herdsmen. He even said he paid them money. He traveled to some countries and offered them money to stop the killings. And the killings never stopped. Instead, it intensified, meaning they took the money to acquire more weapons. So the bottom line is, I think it's more of a hegemony. You know, the Fulani tribe is trying to impose its dominance over every other part of the country. I think that is one explanation that makes sense. You know, so when you come to Plateau, Benue, it's the same agenda. It's about the land. They want to graze. The land is fertile. It has beautiful vegetation. They want to graze there. And Benue is saying, no, we have a law, anti-open grazing law. And these guys are saying, no, we must graze. I mean, a state has enacted a law, but you guys are still going there to graze. I mean, you know, they are so untouchable. They are so powerful. And you have the government in Abuja that is backing them, giving them the moral and all manner of support to continue doing this madness.
Yeah. So as you keep speaking to that, there was something you mentioned earlier. You mentioned about the weapons, and you talked about the 50 cal weapons. And as somebody personally who has served in the military, I know even in a place like America how difficult and restrictive to get those kind of weapons. And even if you can, the cost of getting them is not something at that level. It's expensive. Even in America, it's expensive.
Yeah.
So not to talk of Nigeria, the expense of getting those kind of weapons at that kind of level to be able to perpetrate this kind of violence is not a cheap venture by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know how you could describe that even further for us. Okay.
18th of December 2022. I'm sure you heard of the massacre in southern Kaduna. It went viral. It was all over. It was trending for days. I spoke to the Catholic priest of the parish in the community, and he sent me images of the ammunitions he took himself, not them say, like images he took, both used and unused. Fact, those ammunitions are high, like, I mean, you only get to see it in some kind of sophisticated movies. The villagers said, according to the villagers, they said an armored tank came during the attack. But I know it can't be the normal armored tank that walk majestically. I'm sure what they are trying to describe is this gun truck that the military use. You know, those gun truck, you have machine guns mounted on it, you know, and that was what was used in that farming community. And we also know that a typical herdsman will not sell his cow to buy a weapon. You know how they cherish their cows.
Yes.
They won't sell it to buy a weapon. And even if they will, how many can they buy? And how many cows can they sell? In 2020, I had written an article saying that these guys are in possession of anti-aircraft missiles, weapons. People said, Steven, you've come again with your speculation. I said, no, I'm not speculating. I'm telling you what I've found out. By 2021, they proved me right by gunning down an Alpha jet. And the pilot of that jet happens to be a brother to a friend. You know, he had to send emergency message to the control and told them that he was ejecting the plane. If he had not ejected, he would have died with the crashed plane. I think when they shot the jet, he ejected. And in a sane climb or in a sane country, that guy ought to have been rewarded, because from 2 p.m. when they gunned down that jet till 7 p.m., they were chasing him in the forest.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. You know, the military said they rescued him. No, there was no rescue. He rescued himself before they finally came to help him. So that proved me right that they had all these dangerous weapons. And you've seen videos of them in the forest. You've seen how they brandish and display what they have. So how do they get it? That's the question.
Okay. Now, there are speculations.
It's Steven, are you there?
Did we lose him?
Okay, he's back.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right, continue.
Okay, so there are often speculations that a lot of the Fulani who are carrying out these attacks are actually from other West African countries, so that they cross the border. Have your investigations touched on that question?
Very well, very well. My investigation on this started in the prison. You know, the prison, they sent me to the prison to punish me, but I went there to study, and I was learning and asking questions. Now I found out that some of these guys are from Mali. Yeah, some of them are from Mali, some of them are from Burkina Faso, some of them are from Guinea. Now they assemble in Nigeria, but then there's a cooperation. There's an unholy relationship between the local herdsmen in Nigeria with the foreigners, because the foreigners coming in do not understand the geography. So they need the local ones to take them around and to show them where to attack. So, and in most cases, we have established, because communities that have been attacked in southern Kaduna have also confirmed seeing some herdsmen that they know that have lived with them for 30, 40, 50 years amongst those who came to attack them. Yeah, they've identified some of them. So it is true that most of them are coming from different parts of West Africa, because one of them told me in the prison that they were told that Nigeria belongs to them.
Okay, one of the terrorists?
One of the herdsmen. I don't want to call him a terrorist, but yeah, he was in the prison for illegal possession of firearms. So of course you might choose to call him a terrorist. But he told me he was caught with a firearm. So he said they told them that Nigeria belongs to them.
And who told them?
Well, I didn't ask him who told them, but and that they now have control of the government. Now, let me to your question: who told them? El-Rufai in 2016 during a Channels TV interview where he confessed to paying them compensation. He said, and I quote, he said he sent delegations to some West African countries, I think Mali, Cameroon, and some of these countries. I cannot recall all the countries. And this is the message he said. I'm quoting him verbatim, that he should tell, the delegation should tell the killers that there's a new governor in town who is a Fulani like them. You understand? So giving them a sense of belonging, that, hey, one of our own is in charge now. So to your question, who told them? You can see who told them. You know, it's there. The video is there on Channels TV YouTube page of that interview.
Yeah, there's something I want you to speak to, especially when it comes to El Rufai. I stayed a little bit in the north, and there's something. The first time I went to the north, it surprised me as the quantity of non-Muslims, indigenous non-Muslims, Christians, and it got me into studying history and understanding just how much in reality, in terms of actual numbers, the indigenous people are who are not Muslims. Now, from what we can see and what I can understand is there has been some level of when you talked about the creation of chiefdoms by Ahmed McAfee, there has been a continuation after Patrick Yakowa. McAfee goes, Namadi Sambo comes in. Namadi Sambo is given the vice presidency, which ends up installing Yakowa, who ends up winning an election but dying not long after. And then El Rufai, the current governor, comes in. And from something I can understand, something I do understand is the creation of Emirates, which is very similar to what happens in Plateau back in the 90s, late 90s, when I was there with my father, which is part of the genesis of the crisis in terms of the bomb jaws and the Emirates creation, and then the eventual struggle for land supremacy. So, from what I understand, that there has been creation of the Emirates done afterwards, and that creation might have been intended to continue to cause problems, tensions in those communities.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm glad you touched on this. I first noticed this dangerous plan in 2019. When the paramount ruler of the Adara people was abducted, you remember the chief that was abducted and killed?
Yes.
In 2018 October. Shortly after his demise, a gazette surfaced, dated May 2018, that his chiefdom, like his kingdom, had been balkanized by the government. It was an executive gazette.
That his kingdom had been, could you repeat that, please?
Balkanized
Okay.
by the government. It was an executive gazette, dated May 2018. Now, it was after his demise or his murder that we all found out that the chief had prior knowledge of the gazette and was fighting against it. But, sadly, people don't understand the power of the media. People don't understand that there are certain devilish policies that when you bring it out on the media space and you get people debating and creating conversation around it, sometimes they backtrack. We've seen it happen at the federal level where certain policies they want to come up with, but because of the reaction, the backlashes,
the water bill,
the Ruga and the prison reserve and what have you. Now, but the chief, I don't know, some of them are not media inclined. So he was fighting this battle alone without people knowing. I didn't know that there was a gazette dated May 2018. So in 2019 February, I wrote an article, How the Kajuru Genocide Started. And in that article, I stated the chronicles of events that happened in Kajuru. Kajuru is a local government, one of the largest local government in Kaduna State. And the Adara people are one of the largest tribes in the state. They are found in Niger, they are found in Nasarawa and Kaduna State. So he was the paramount ruler of the Adara people. Not the ruler of Kajuru as a local government, but the ruler of a tribe. You understand? Now, in that article, I said there was a gazette dated May 2018, which we eventually saw. Now, for you to balkanize his chiefdom and create an emirate, two things must happen. One, is either he is dethroned. Now, on what basis are you dethroning him? He has not committed any offense. The second option is that he needs to die. Now, since the first option of dethronement is not feasible because the man is a gentleman who had not committed any offense worthy of dethronement, the option of murder came into play. In that article, I said people can read and connect the dots. And that was there was a report written by the Trends newspaper. According to them, they believe that that article was the genesis of what led to my abduction. Because I exposed things I shouldn't have, according to them. So, an emirate was created in Kajuru, a local government that is 95% predominantly Christian, while balkanizing the ethnic chiefdom. Now, in the same 2018, the Gbagi people, I'm sure you've heard of the Gbagi people. It's one
people
of
in Abuja
yes,
and Kaduna.
yes, it's a popular ethnic nationality in Nigeria. Now, they had their paramount ruler renamed from Sagbagi. Sagbagi means the chief of Gbagi people. Gbagi as an ethnic nationality. They had his throne renamed to Esu Jukun, meaning he's a chief over Jukun as a local government, not over the Gbagi people. I wrote another article in 2020, warning the people that this is a deliberate attempt to reduce the powers of our chiefs and also make it possible for settlers to eventually emerge as chiefs in these areas. Let me explain, because when you have a king of Enugu instead of a king of the Igbo tribe, the king of the Igbo tribe must be an Igbo man. But the king of Enugu might not be an Igbo man because there might be other tribes who have settled in Enugu for 200 years.
True.
Who are not Igbo. That was the game. So people thought I was just speculating because most times they said I'm an alarmist. I love raising alarm. But then you see these things, and when you play chess, sometimes you understand this. Last year, somebody from Jukun local government, a Gbagi man, told me that a district head died, a Gbagi district head died in a Gbagi community, and the kingmakers deliberated and appointed someone and recommended him to the government as usual. That's what is obtainable in the north. The kingmakers recommend to the governor will now approve and turban and coronate them. Do you know that the governor turned down the names of the indigenous Gbagi people said, and a Fulani man was appointed to be the district head over a Gbagi community? So that's not it only. We've had some other places in Kafanchan where the chief died and he renamed it, instead of calling it a stool for the ethnic people, is now a stool over a geographical location. Now what it means is that, of course, you have these Fulanis everywhere. So in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, one thing about this thing is that they don't just do it to take effect immediately, even though Erufai does its own to take effect immediately. But most of these plans are to take effect in a long time, so people will not really suspect it. So maybe in 50 years' time, you could have a Fulani man as a chief of my own community. So that has been the case. And then he has created, I think, 4 emirates. He created one in my local government. My local government is also about 80% Christian local government, but we now have an emirate in Kagarko. He created one in Kajuru. He created one in Kauru local government, a predominantly Christian local government, and he created one in Lewe. So a total of 4 emirates he has created. And I mean, I can't explain it because from my little knowledge, Emirates were established by Danfodio, signifying conquest. When he conquers a particular Hausa land, an emirate is established. But in the 21st century, we have a governor who claimed to have studied in Harvard and Oxford, creating emirates in Kaduna State.
Yeah, one last question I have before this then is, the elections in Nigeria, elections in Kaduna, I don't know if you know of these incidents, and I wanted you to speak about it if you do. I've seen incidents where I can't remember specifically, so if I'm wrong, kindly let me know. But I've seen the incidents where the public is told not to vote for certain people because they are infidels and they cannot be ruling over. Muslim leaders. You know, this emirate leaders, essentially what we're talking about. So I've seen posters being put up there. I've seen these things, and we're talking about places where that's the second thing you can also attach and speak on that. The quantity of indigenous Christians in these places, you know, because you said it was in the Danfodio area. Actually, also the British came in and did, but that's a whole different conversation. We're just talking about what is happening in terms of the elections, how these things end up happening, and speaking to the dynamics of Christians, the quantity of Christians. And in fact, I believe personally in some places the Christian population, the quantity is understated purposefully. So I don't know if you can speak to that.
Of course, even in Kaduna State, going by the 2006 census, you will see that the Christian is not minority in Kaduna State. Now, some days ago, a friend wrote an article which I published on Middle Belt Times, my newspaper, about the Zar people of Bauchi. The Zar people are the indigenous Christians in Bauchi State, and they are in a very large number. In fact,
as a real local government, right?
They occupied Tafawa Balewa local government and also part of Azare local government. Yakubu Dogara is from that place. Now, you see, before now, the northern elite deliberately tried to misinform other part of the country by saying that the north is one, you know. But when this killing started, to your tent, OE Israel, the ethnic nationalities in northern Nigeria now begin to understand that it's no longer business as usual. We are no longer one because these guys are turning their guns on us. So it became very clear. Now, talking about election, yes, it's true. We've had clerics warning people in their sermon that in this coming election, they must vote for the ticket, the Muslim ticket. That it's jihad and it's a cause for religion, for advancement of religion. It is not new, maybe because they are beginning to say it publicly, and because there's now the social media is popular, so the message gets viral. So it's sounding strange to other people, but for us born and brought up in the north, we understand that this thing has been there for as long as you could think of. When Yakowa died, I had gone back to Cat Poly to do clearance in 2012, and I saw people jubilating on campus. And I asked Nafiu, a classmate, I said, Nafiu, what is happening? Why are they jubilating? He said, the infidel governor, Yakowa, has died. Yeah. And Yakowa is Kagoma. And I'm Jaba, and we understand. So he's like a brother to me because we understand their language. So somebody is celebrating that my own brother has died. And that he's an infidel. So that day, it occurred to me that someday my death could be celebrated too because I'm an infidel. So it's bad that they've so indoctrinated people. They've poisoned the mind of the masses. And because these masses in the north are majority, and that's where you have the over 10 million out of school children, and you have the poor people who are not learned. So they take whatever comes from this clerics, hook, line, and sinker. And these are the same people that can go on the street with machetes and begin to cut off the heads of people they believe vote for infidels. So you can see it's dangerous because the learned ones will not go about doing the killings. I hope you know that. Yes, it's just masses, because these masses so much believe and respect their clerics. So whatever the Malam says, it's law, it's final. And that is why a poor schoolgirl, Deborah, was murdered. That is why with Gideon Akaluka was murdered right there in the prison where he ought to be protected in the 90s. Because these clerics are like gods, they are like deities. So it is a problem. I don't know how we're going to solve it, but it's like having two societies.
Absolutely.
You have light and darkness trying to cohabit. I mean, it's not possible.
So that's actually, you said you don't know how we're going to solve it. And that's sort of the challenge that I wanted to throw your way, to say, what is the sentiment that you get from the people among whom you travel in the areas? There's sentiment about the continued existence of Nigeria as one unit, and there's sentiment specifically about the elections that are coming up in less than a month now.
Well, I personally, even though I'm from the Middle Belt, I no longer tell people that I'm from northern Nigeria. I tell people that I'm from the Middle Belt, because now we understand that there's a place called the Middle Belt, and even the colonial masters also established that fact that there's an area called the Middle Belt. Now, I'm a strong advocate for self-determination and possibly disintegration of the entity called Nigeria. And I have my reasons, because I have studied intensely and I've come to understand that it is almost impossible for anybody, be it Obama or Donald Trump or even the best president in the world, to be able to correct some of these issues in Nigeria. Now, these are problems that are deeply rooted, in fact, that are right there in our foundation, our very foundation. They are foundational problems. So they are foundational problems, and you cannot solve foundational problems from the top, from the rooftop. You must go to the foundation. And we all know that revisiting the foundation is almost impossible. So I tell people that, no, if certain people want to be on their own, you have the Yoruba Nation agitators, you have the Biafra agitators, you have the Middle Belt also now beginning to open their eyes and say, hey, we also want to have our own republic. So I feel that might be the best solution for us. I keep telling people said, no, that you are from the north. Why are you advocating for I said, no, the problems I have identified are not problems that can be solved through elections. They are beyond elections. Yeah, so that's my view about the whole thing.
Yes. So it's interesting because, of course, during the Nigerian Civil War, the Middle Belt saw itself as an integral part of the North. And Danjuma, of course, we know the role that it played. So I think that it's circled back in a very interesting way where we're now doing essentially this desegregation, where people are realizing that perhaps we were never part of this larger unit that we used to think that we belonged to. So do you have any projections at all? Any sense of how the elections are going to play out, especially in what you call the Middle Belt?
Yeah, well, an average Middle Belter would rather cast his vote for a Southerner than for a Northerner, going by the experience in the last 8 years. The Middle Belt has seen nothing but blood, tears, and sorrow. So, and we understand that Atiku has no problem to offer when it comes to the killings in the Middle Belt, because we saw how he kicked against Autumn's move to enact the anti-grazing, open grazing law. So that is a pointer that if he comes in, some of those laws that have been successfully enacted in states like Ekiti, Ondo, and some states in the southeast might be repelled or reversed. So the feeling in the Middle Belt, I can tell you this for free, that they would rather vote for Peter Obi than to vote for any of the other two candidates. And they have their reasons, and the reasons are cogent, because they have suffered, and you could see how they were neglected. Even some of the elites like Gowon, who played a key role in the Civil War, his own community too has suffered. T.Y. Danjuma, Taraba, there's been massacres there. So it's I don't want to say that it's karma catching up with them, because human lives are involved. But whichever way you want to look at it, what goes around comes around.
The Angas people and the Jukun and the distant Taraba, the Angas.
Exactly. So as for projection, we all know the ruling party is going to do everything possible to want to tamper with the outcome of the polls. But let's just hope for the best. But the signs are not very good. Yeah, the signs are not very good.
Okay. So let me ask you the last question, because I know you've been very kind with your time. And I'm going to sort of ask two unrelated questions, but bunch them into one, as it were. So you talked about the killings of Muslims going on in parts of the north, even in the really core northern areas of the country. And you attribute it to Fulani attackers killing Hausa Muslims. So that's one. So I want to ask you whether you see that having any political implications for the way that the Hausa are going to vote in these elections. Then the other question, which is not related to the first essentially, is how are you keeping safe? What's your experience like from day to day? And then we'll call it a day.
Yeah, there's been audio messages of Hausa people trying to educate their people that their enemies are not the Igbos or the Yorubas, that their real enemies are the Fulanis who came during the jihad. I've listened to a couple of those messages that went viral on WhatsApp. Hausa people educating Hausa people, telling them that, look, these people you think are your brothers are the real enemies. They are the one killing you people. In fact, a particular Hausa woman said, is it the Igbo people that are coming to kill people in Zamfara? She asked a rhetorical question, And of course, the response is no. Who are doing the killings? They are the Fulani. So somehow it can affect. When you look at the political campaign so far, you could see that things that ordinarily wouldn't have happened are happening. You could see certain presidential candidates going to Kanu and people turning up, including Hausas, Muslims. You could see what happened in Kaduna. So I think the dynamics is changing, right? People, but then the level of awareness is poor, because like I said, the masses that are the majority in the north, in northern Nigeria, they've so weaponized poverty. Poverty is a weapon in the hands of the political elite. So they have to keep these guys poor so that they can manipulate them. When you empower these guys and educate them, they become smart. You can no longer tell them that, hey, vote for this guy because he's a Muslim. No, they won't do that because they're educated. So, of course, that's a topic for another day. And then how do I keep safe? Well, God has been faithful. I believe that since I didn't die in prison, even though I was ill, I was exposed to certain health condition in the prison, I believe that for the fact that I escaped all those ordeals, maybe God has a better plan for me. I'm fine. I left Nigeria last year, July, and it has not been easy living in exile, where you don't know nobody, you don't do a job, you don't do anything. So, but God has been faithful, and we've not stopped advocating for justice and equal rights in Nigeria.
Thank you very, very much, Steven Kefas. This has been a very stimulating and a very enlightening conversation with you. Your insights are really cogent, and we hope that the work that you do will continue to bear fruit and will move Nigeria toward a justice and toward a nation where laws and the Constitution particularly are observed and obeyed. Thank you very much for being our guest. It's been such a delight to hear from you. Emeka, your last
Thank you very much, Steven, for coming on. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your flexibility as well. So thank you very much. We look forward to having you on again in future. So
sure,
please,
anytime.
And do keep
stay
safe.
Yes.
Yeah, I will. Thank you.
All right then. Take care. God bless.